Seth Trimble has pulled out of the transfer portal and will be back at North Carolina next year. The Tar Heels ceiling just got a lot higher.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, joined by our guy, Coach Pack Kilby. You're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Now, look, it is Tuesday, but this is actually going to be our Wednesday episode. So if you're tuning in on Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon, don't fret. I didn't mess up. It's just sometimes news happens and we got to do it right now. And that's what we're doing. So this is a live edition of the North Carolina Tar Heels Locked On podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out to all you everydayers out there and all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Look, I admit it. I've got a competitive side, and that side of me is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. So coming up on the show today, Pack, here's what we got lined up. We're going to talk about Seth being back. We're going to talk about, is RJ back too? Maybe sort of kind of gotten broke by Matt Norlander on Tuesday afternoon. But then also we got to go from there to talking about, all right, so what's next? What are the next steps? So Pack, let's start with what we know to be certifiably true, and that is the news that Seth Trimble is back. Here's the timeline. April 9th, Seth Trimble entered his name into the transfer portal. I would say somewhat surprisingly and disappointingly, we were all bummed about that. But today, Tuesday, April 23rd, he announced that he is back. And now Carolina has 4 scholarships that are open that remain for next season. We'll unpack that later. You know, I've got my rainbow scholarship chart ready for us to look at. Pack, I want to read what Seth said in his Instagram post about coming back, and then I'll let you react to that. Quote, "I've taken time to realize where my home is. Woo! After much consideration, I've decided my heart and soul belong in Chapel Hill. Tar Heel Nation, let's work." End quote. Pat Kilby, what do you make of the news that Seth Trimble is back?
Well, first of all, I just love the wording he used in the announcement that you just read. You know, it was just like the biggest takeaway for me was he was basically like, hey, how could I leave this place? I'm a Tar Heel. This is where I want to be. This is where my heart and soul is. Let's get to work. And I love that. It wasn't some elaborate post. It wasn't, hey, look at me. It's, I'm back. This is where my heart is. Let's work. And that's exactly kind of what he personifies on the court too. Just a dog, you know, he's just out here. Let's get out here and work. And man, just it's like you said in the intro, what he does to the ceiling of this team is crazy. He makes our ceiling so much higher because of the intangibles he brings in a lot of different areas of the game, but also just the quality of young man that he is. And you know, to have someone like that personifies exactly what it feels like Coach Davis is looking for.
That's right.
What we're looking for, you know, in our players and as Tar Heels is someone that personifies who he is. And man, I'm just super glad to have him back.
And Pack, I love what you said there about that personification of Coach Davis and what Carolina is looking for. Because I think as folks get upset that, you know, Carolina's like not making big splashes yet in the transfer portal, or why isn't anyone committing, et cetera, it's a reminder. And you said this in the Discord, I thought very well on Monday evening. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but basically, look, let's remember here that Hubert Davis is not going to go bag chasing, for better or for worse, right? If we're being honest about that, because he wants guys that want to be here. And so that is the thing. And Pack, I love that, because that is how you go about getting a team that has as good a chemistry and as good a connectedness as this year's team did. That's the only way in this day and age that you can continue to program build instead of team build year to year, is by having that interconnectedness of guys who want to be Tar Heels, who want to be in Chapel Hill, like you're saying there. Now, Pack, you also said that you agree with me that Seth Trimble being back raises North Carolina's ceiling. Let's talk about some specifics of why we feel that way. What to you is the single most important thing and single best thing that Seth Trimble does to help raise that ceiling?
Well, his defense, I think, is where you got to start. That's the staple of his game. And I think there's an argument to be made that he's the best on-ball defender in college basketball. I mean, the guy is just an absolute hawk. He's so quick. He's so strong, so explosive. The way he can jump, alter shots, and he's got it right here too. He's got it in his heart. You know, defense is, yes, it's a lot about ability, but it's also a lot about a mentality. And Seth just brings that to the table. And so I think the way he guards, the way he can guard multiple positions, and the way he can do things defensively, including finishing possessions with rebounds, just makes us so much better on that end.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. And I love it because this has been North Carolina's identity this past year. It's so funny because, you know, typically and traditionally we look at Carolina's identity and it's like, oh, this is about run and gun and get out and attack offensively. And all right, the defense will figure it out at some point. Let's remember last year, it was Carolina's defense that was the most elite part of their game. And Seth Trimble, if not the single most important part of that, although I think he was, is at least top two in that. And so what it means to me, like the biggest thing I bemoaned when he entered the transfer portal is, shoot, there goes that great defensive identity we had next year. I don't know if we can get that back. Maybe Drake Powell can bring some of that, but he's just going to be a freshman and it'll come and go. But with Seth back, nice rhyme shade, with Seth Trimble back, think about how devastating some of Carolina's defensive lineup combinations could be, right? You've got Seth back. You've got somebody like, let's say, Drake Powell, like that's what he's known for is his defense. Let's say Carolina is able to land one of Jonas Adu or Cliff Omori, particularly Omori, who's known for his defense more than anything. And I know like that lineup wouldn't give you a ton of shooting on the floor, but they're going to lock down every opponent they would play if you've got some of those guys. And so, Pac, I think there's a ton of capability there with that. Now, Pac, at the same time as Seth brings a lot of great stuff, and we can say some more great things he brings, clearly there are things that he, like any other basketball player, needs to work on this offseason to get ready and prepared for next year. As you look at Seth's game, where are, maybe a hole or two that he can continue to develop?
Well, I think you got to, look at shooting. We saw obviously a massive jump in his progress, the way he shot the ball this year, as opposed to his freshman year. Now, you've got to think he's probably going to be more of a volume shooter this incoming season. He's going to have more opportunity to do that.
How many would you like to see? How many threes do you want to see him take?
Man, I'd like to see him take 2 to 3,
okay.
Which is, I think this year he was like 42 total threes.
He was. I'm pulling it up right now. 13 of 31 this season.
Okay, 13 of 31. So, obviously, if he takes 2 to 3 a game, that's going to be a jump up from where he was at. And 13 of 31 is a great percentage.
41.9. That's right.
Yeah, so he was super efficient with that. So now we want to see him do that in volume more so and become a major threat. Now, I'm not saying I want him to be the volume of RJ Davis, but I want him to be respected by defenses. And so to me, that's an area where he can improve. And then also in his ball handling, projecting what our backcourt could be, I would think he would be a lot in relief of Cadeau. And so he may have some ball handling responsibilities. So if he can improve there and then improve his shooting, man, I think his game is just going to jump to the next level.
That's absolutely right. And I'm in real time, I'm getting back to my memory was that his assist to turnover ratio was really good down the stretch. So remember, Pac, there was that stretch where he missed a couple games with that head injury. From then through the rest of the season, he had 17 assists against just 7 turnovers. And like, that's what what Carolina needs. When Seth Trimble is in relief of Cadeau or RJ Davis, that's exactly what he's going to have to continue to do, is help the team not turn the ball over. Because let's remember, this was one of the best seasons Carolina has ever had in terms of turnover ratio because they held on to the ball so well. And Seth Trimble is more and more and more a key part of that. And so we're going to have to watch that. Pac, I want to bring in, we're not going to have a ton of time for questions from the chat today like we typically would do in a live show in segment 3. But I want to bring in this one from Ken Hudson, who asks, so do you pencil Trimble into the starting lineup? Pac, my answer would still be no. But I'm curious what your thought is.
Yeah, I think no as well. And I know obviously a lot of it is still indicative of what could come from the transfer portal or what doesn't come maybe. And even though we think RJ might be coming back or is coming back, it's still not for certain. So there could be things that change that insert him into the lineup. But I foresee him in, kind of the same role as last year, being that sixth man with the experience and the energy that he brings off the bench, but obviously in a larger capacity, more minutes, more shot attempts, things of that nature. But I see him being the leader of the unit that comes off the bench for us.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, he was third in sixth man of the year voting in the ACC this year. I think that award could be Seth Trimble's next year, Pat Kilby. And even coming off the bench, especially with Reese Beekman gone, he could be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year coming off the bench. Like there is a real world in which that's a possibility. So we'll see what happens there. By the way, folks, let me recommend to you Inside Carolina's article and write-up on Seth's return. Has a lot of great inside information from Sherelle McMillan on all the background, how this came together. We're not going to dive into that today because we got other stuff to talk about, but let me encourage you to go read that. And as always, Inside Carolina has done a great job with their reporting on this. Now, speaking of reporting, Pat Kilby, in the wake of the Seth Trimble news on Tuesday afternoon, Matt Norlander from CBS was tweeting out the possibility, most firm of this rumor we've ever seen so far, that RJ Davis is coming back. We've not heard it confirmed anywhere near that strong. We're obviously going to have to talk about that, and we'll do so in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. How about some 2025 NCAA championship odds? That seems appropriately timed to discuss right now. Kansas leads the way at plus 1,000, followed by Duke at plus 1,200, UConn at plus 1,400. Alabama and Houston tied at plus 1,600, followed by North Carolina at plus 1,800. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Pat, we want to move now from talking about Seth Trimble to talking about some news that kind of popped on Tuesday in light of the Seth Trimble news. For those who are unaware of what's happened, obviously there have been a lot of rumors lately about will RJ announce, will RJ not announce, we don't know, whatever. I've also seen a lot of people talking about RJ has to announce by Saturday because that's the early entry deadline to announce that you're going into the NBA draft. Guess what? Here's the problem with that, everybody. RJ is not an early entrant. Yes, he has another year of eligibility, but it's COVID eligibility. He is a senior last year, and that means he is not an early entrant into the NBA draft. He's just kind of automatically there. So that deadline does not apply to RJ for having to declare for the draft. I hope that makes sense and you understand where I'm coming at with that. So there's all those news and swirlings and timelines coming out. But here's what happened on Tuesday. Inside Carolina tweets out about Seth Trimble withdrawing from the portal. Matt Norlander of CBS, who's one of their main college basketball guys, quote tweets it and says this: "Welcome to news in Chapel Hill, with more on the way." And immediately, Pac, I read that first line and I'm like, we about to get some Cade Tyson news. What's happening this afternoon? What's coming? Well, you keep reading the tweet and he says, Trimble's not the only guy sticking around. Wait, somebody else? RJ Davis is on board to return as well, sources tell CBS Sports, with an official announcement landing in the next few days. UNC also returning Elliot Cadeau in the backcourt too. So, Pat, we already kind of knew that Elliot Cadeau news based on some stuff like him joining his brother's Twitch stream or whatever it was the other day. All that crazy kid stuff with video games and all the good stuff there. But, Pat, this news about RJ coming from Matt Norlander, who, first off, folks, if you don't know Matt Norlander, he is as reputable as they come at CBS. He's essentially their number 2 college basketball guy, along with Gary Parrish. He's not a scoops guy. He's not a hot take guy. He's a guy that only reports things that are wildly resourced and fact-based. So if he's saying this, and he's saying it with the authority, like, hear the language one more time. Trimble's not the only guy sticking around. RJ Davis is on board to return as well, source confirms to CBS Sports. And I saw a lot of people saying, oh, he's just scooping inside Carolina. It's really their scoop. This dude is all over the college basketball landscape. Trust me on this, folks. I cover this, not just Tar Heels, the national college basketball landscape all day, every day. You can take this to the bank if it's coming from Matt Norlander. So, Pack, all of that said, we're going to talk in this segment. We're not going to give qualifiers. We're going to talk as though RJ Davis truly is back. And assuming all that, Pack, here's what I'm wondering. You think RJ Davis would make the first or second team all ACC preseason this year? Because he didn't last year. You think they might get it right this time?
Hopefully. But based on the way he played this year without having made that in the preseason, hopefully they leave him off again. Give him some more motivation.
Man, wow. I mean, it's still so laughable that happened. But yeah, you know what? Leave him off. Let's get this guy rolling back. I mean, Pack, here's the level that we're talking about. Last year, ACC Player of the Year. Keep in mind, Zach Edey's out the door. Dalton Connect's out the door. RJ Davis is going to be the National Preseason Player of the Year for probably every publication you see. Like, that's not hyperbolic. You're going to see that. It's not just ACC Preseason Player of the Year. We're talking the national level for this thing right here, Pack. So here's something really cool to me. You talk about all the people that are in and out and transfers, and there's no continuity anymore. You know what this would mean for North Carolina? 3 straight years of a guy playing his 5th year at North Carolina. And by the way, that's all 5 years at North Carolina, not just I transferred in for my 5th year. 2 seasons ago, Leaky Black, 5th year at North Carolina, all 5 there. This year, Armando Bacot, all 5 in Chapel Hill, and RJ Davis, the 3rd Musketeer, 5 straight years, in Chapel Hill. So, Pat, I know there's been a lot of back and forth. Some Carolina parts of the fan base have said, I don't want RJ Davis back. I think he should move on. I think he should go create room for other people. I love the smile that you're already giving me because you're loaded and ready to go. And others have said, no, of course you want RJ Davis back. He's the ACC Player of the Year. Why wouldn't you? Pack, which of those 2 camps do you fall in, and tell me why?
Well, I can tell you, and I think everybody else probably already knows based on previous podcasts, I am firmly in the RJ Davis returning to Carolina camp. Golly, he's just so good. He's always been so good. And, having him back means we have an absolute scoring threat from anywhere on the court. It means we have an experienced guard in the backcourt. And maybe what will go under the radar, that's the most important thing to this, is the scoring and the experience that he provides frees up Elliot Cadeau to be Elliot Cadeau. And it provides some stability for him. Think about being a freshman point guard at Carolina playing alongside RJ and then losing that. And then, going into your sophomore season, having to figure out how to play with the next guy at the 2. So we've got that chemistry back there. And just the fact that RJ is the scorer that he is, that allows Elliot to play into his strengths of being the creator and facilitating. And so, I mean, just overall, RJ back is a huge win for Carolina. And I'm super, super excited about it.
I mean, Pack, I'm right with you. I am firmly in that camp as well as that. This is a great thing. And if it means some fewer minutes for guys here or there, if here's what got to be critical. Coach Davis has to get this team rallied together immediately and say, guys, once again, this is about, as he always said, like about we, not me. We've got to all buy in for us because we're going to have depth. We're going to have talent in the starting lineup and off the bench. And not to mention, Pack, this dude, how about these numbers, Pack? You ready for this?
Let's hear it.
RJ Davis, at the end of this year, finished the year 5th all-time in scoring at Carolina with 2,088 points. He scored 784 this year. If he exactly replicated that next year, it would give him 2,872. Pack, I'm going to repeat that number again, 2,872 points. Who is the all-time leader in Carolina scoring, Pack Hilby?
Tyler Hansbrough.
You know how many career points he had?
I don't, off the top of my head.
2,872. So
wow.
if RJ Davis exactly replicated what he did this year, which is not going to happen, but if he did, stay with me, he would tie Tyler Hansbrough for first in career points, which is, by the way, just a reminder of how ridiculous Psycho T was to do that in 4 years. But if RJ is indeed back, he's going to obliterate a lot of what we know in the Carolina record book. Pack, here's another question. What do you foresee this doing in the transfer portal for Carolina? Helping, hurting? And obviously we're going to go forward with this. So let's not get into specific players, but just in general, if you know that the ACC Player of the Year is coming back and you could play with him, do you say, I don't know that guy, he gets a lot of shots, so I don't want to go there? Or do you say, I want to go somewhere where I can maybe win and play with a great dude? Let me get on board with that. How would you view that if you're somebody in the portal?
Well, I think, at first glance, people might look at it and go, well, this is a negative thing because of the things that you just mentioned. But I look at it as a positive. And I guess it all depends on what the specific transfer is looking for. But, to me, you're thinking about, oh, man, this is RJ Davis. I can go play alongside him. You're almost guaranteed to be a successful team, a winning team. And, what he frees up, because he commands so much attention from the defense, he frees you up to be able to play your game better. And it's not like, yes, RJ is going to get a volume of shots because he's such a good player, but I don't consider RJ selfish by any means. I think RJ is the type of player that's willing to do what it takes to win. So if that means he gets less shots for someone else to cook while they're hot, then he's going to do that. And we saw that multiple times this year. Look at Harrison at Duke. He was the hot hand, and RJ was willing to concede to him and let him get those shots. And so when I look at it, I think this is more an opportunity to come in and play alongside a National Player of the Year type and grow, not just as a player, not just be the man, but play on a winning team and be a part of a winning culture. And if that's what they're looking for, then I think that Carolina's the spot to be based on RJ coming back.
And I think, there were a time or two this year where I thought he pressed too much on himself. Like an example was against NC State in the ACC championship. I thought he forced it a little bit here and there, but y'all, that is the exception. That is not the rule by any stretch of the imagination. Pack, quickly, because I know we need to move on, but same question I asked you about Seth Trimble. Just immediately in the aftermath of a lot of this news we learned on Tuesday afternoon, holes in the game that RJ Davis needs to work on this offseason.
Well, I think being a better finisher around the rim and the mid-range level, and I know that sounds crazy because he's really good at it, but y'all, it's hard to get much better from the three-point line. The way he shoots it with the amount of shots that he shoots, I think he's really, really sharp from back there. And so just to me, it's finishing around the rim, getting to that mid-range pull-up that he likes to get to, or that little float game that he has. Being more consistent there. And then also, and it's hard to tell right now based on who's going to be on the roster when October and November rolls around, but just kind of maybe creating for others to piggyback off what we just finished talking about, creating for others within the offense and utilizing their strengths to help free him up more. Yeah. And, that's one of the things I really took away from the Alabama game is we've got to have options whenever people are really wearing him down and taking him away. We've got to have some things that we can go to help offset that.
It's a great example, Pack. Well, who could some of those options be? Carolina, as we said, still has 4 more scholarships that they can use should they choose to. What's next and where does Carolina go from here? We're going to have that discussion in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there either as a player or fan. It's halftime, scoreboard's not looking great. You're feeling low, not sure your team can pull out a win. That's where you got to dig deep, lift up your head and say to yourself, it's time for me to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and build the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do, like playing on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, making your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, or charging other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. The weather's finally heating up, and that means it's time to go take in some Major League Baseball. Great news, Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of MLB, making getting tickets even faster and easier. They've got killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a lowest price guarantee. And with that, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. One of my favorite features of theirs is their last minute deals. Maybe you want to get in on tickets for some of the NBA playoffs going right now, and it's just like a last minute whim. Well, you can save up to 60% buying tickets for those games, but also concerts, comedy, theater, and more. I often worry about my third-party tickets being bogus, but with Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. I love that peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Pack, we've talked about all this great news about Seth Trimble deciding to stay in, the very strongly rumored with great sourcing, but as of yet unconfirmed by RJ or North Carolina in real time as of Tuesday evening at 7:30 Eastern time to timestamp this thing. RJ Davis back as well. But the question becomes, where does Carolina go from here? So, Pack, what I'm going to do in real time is pull up the scholarship availability chart. As you can see, folks, 9 scholarships utilized right now if everything stays the same as we expect it to be. RJ Davis, Jalen Withers, the super seniors, Seth Trimble and Jalen Washington, the juniors, Cadeau and Zayden High, the sophomores, and then the 3 incoming freshmen, James Brown, Ian Jackson, and Drake Powell. Pack, the talking point has been, what all does Carolina need? I believe now, one of the things we've talked about is Carolina needs a backup point guard. I think that conversation is dead and done and over. Do you feel the same?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like just a brief rundown of the backcourt, it's solidified. It's Elliott at the 1A, Seth at the 1B, then RJ at the 2, and then Ian at 2B. And that's maybe the best backcourt in the country.
I mean, if it's not, it's up there. But, dude, I cannot wait to see this backcourt in action. But, Pack, we got to surround that, the Tar Heels do, with some dudes at the 3, 4, and 5. And that's what we look at and what we've been talking about, because the expectation for a while has been you need somebody to replace Armando Bacot and somebody to replace Cormac Ryan. But now that Harrison Ingram is also out, you need somebody to replace him. So you're looking for small forward, power forward, and center. Do you still feel that with this news of Seth Trimble returning, given what else you've got on the roster in an Ian Jackson, in a Drake Powell, and everyone else that was already there, do you still think Carolina needs to find in the portal a 3, a 4, and a 5?
Yeah, I do. And I feel that way because I hate the idea of fully relying on freshmen. Not because they're not ready for that. I think Ian and Drake and even James, I think they're all going to end up being really good college players. I just think that it's a lot to ask of them to come to the University of North Carolina and be ready to be inserted into the lineup and play right away. And so in my mind, I would like to fill that gap with some players that have some experience. And like, Cade, for instance, Cade Tyson, if he comes, I think he would be the perfect guy at the 3, and he would be able to, allow Drake and even Ian to ease their way into college and to the speed of the game and to the way it's played. And so I think that would be beneficial, but also from a competitive standpoint, from a depth standpoint, I think we need to add more talent to the roster.
I completely agree with you on that. And look, Drake Powell is going to be an incredible Tar Heel. Ian Jackson is a dude. And I think a lot of people are going to say some form this offseason of Ian Jackson ain't coming off the bench. We hear that every offseason about freshmen. This offseason and with Ian Jackson's no different. And with all due respect, to Ian Jackson, I completely agree with you. Also, with all due respect to Ian Jackson, he is not yet the proven three-point shooter to the level that Carolina needs out of that position. Now, RJ back helps for sure, but you bring in somebody like Cade Tyson, pair that with RJ Davis. I mean, dude, that is lethal at the 2 and the 3, Pack. I'm just telling you right now. And so I am firmly all in camp Ian Jackson, Cade Tyson on still getting him in. A lot of folks have been texting me and DMing me and other things just because there hasn't been an announcement following his visit this weekend. I'm still expecting it. I've heard nothing different or to the contrary that he's like out now or anything like that. So folks, just hang on tight with that. And then obviously keep in mind, there's news about Andrej Stojakovic, a possibility with him, and with Kobe Brea coming out of Dayton. Both of those guys to me are only, or if and only if Cade Tyson says no. And then I think you kind of reevaluate, do you still want an Andrej Stojakovic? Do you want to be in on Kobe Brea, who, so we'll just look there. Now, because you think about it, Pac, in terms of other guys on this roster who could play the 3, Drake is a small forward. Ian Jackson is not a small forward, although I think he could play it in modern basketball. We're going to see a lot of those kind of lineups. I think we might see Jalen Withers play the 3 some in like a jumbo lineup. But, truly, Drake Powell is the most small forwardish typical 3 that we have. I mean, I think we'll see Seth Trimble there some too in like a Trimble, Davis, Cadeau lineup. But that's why I really think you need Cade Tyson, who is a more pure 3. Pac, as you look at the 4, you got guys on the roster like Jalen Withers, Zayden High, Jalen Washington, if he could come down and play some 4. But I'm still all in on going out to get Adu Thiero. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I 100% agree. Thiero is, obviously Tyson's the guy I want the most, but Thiero is right behind him. I just love the way his game projects. I think he could grow a lot at Carolina. And, man, we spent a lot of time earlier talking about what Trimble could bring defensively. Thiero can do that defensively too. And he feels like a natural replacement for Harrison Ingram, in my opinion. Now, he's not Harrison Ingram. He's not. That's not who I'm comparing him to by any means. But there are a lot of similarities as far as size and strength and length, athleticism, ability to rebound. But I think in a lot of ways, Thiero could offer more even defensively than what Harrison did and more athleticism. Anyways, I think
definitely he out athletes Harrison Ingram. Let's make that clear.
He does. Yeah. And so, I just really like what Thiero could bring. And then that really solidifies us at the 4. If you look at that, that gives us Thiero, Withers, and High. I mean, I'm
great with that. Yeah.
That's loaded for talent right there. And the competitiveness in practice, the way those guys would make each other better, that would just be great for our roster.
And again, the news of the return of like RJ Davis and Seth Trimble to me does not scare those guys off. If I'm Thiero, if I'm Tyson, that entices me more to want to come to be part of what those guys are building. Pack, last thing, the 5, the center position. I think right now, as we look at it, the 2 guys you really have on your roster that you feel comfortable with are that are 5s are Jalen Washington and James Brown. I think High Withers could play some small ball 5 if you really needed it to, but I'm still, just like you said earlier, I'm still all in on continuing to pursue Cliff Omori from Rutgers and or Jonas Adu from Tennessee. I just think you need that bulk. you've got to be able to have it. But that's also why somebody like Cade Tyson's so important, because both Amori and Adu aren't going to be guys that step out and hit from three. Pack, Amori, Adu, where are you at with all that?
Yeah, I think we've got to get one of them, or at least somebody, in that 5 spot, like you just emphasized. For me, Amori or Adu would be just fantastic because of, once again, what they would bring defensively, their athleticism, their shot altering ability, shot blocking ability, the way they could run the floor, I think will fit really well with our pace next year. And so anyways, I think either of those two would be a fit. I'm super intrigued to see how their recruitment finishes up here as the portal is somewhat winding down, it feels like. But, I just can't help but think, and maybe I'm wrong for this, those guys would see RJ coming back and think, man, I got to think that increases our chances with them because of how much, knowing he's coming back, or at least we think we know he's coming back, what he could do for a team's chances to win a national championship. You got to think that increases our chances in recruiting Amori and Adu.
Well, and you think about the lob threat that Amori in particular is. I mean, this dude dunks everything in sight. And more so than RJ, I look at Elliott and I'm like, this dude can throw me every lob in the book. I want to get out on the floor and run with him all day long, right? And so that just makes a ton of sense. So, Pack, if Carolina does in fact land a 3, 4, and a 5, that gets them up to 12 of their 13 scholarships used. As a reminder, Coach Davis last year only used 11 of the 13. And so I think you're done at that point if you can land 3 more. So for Pat Kilby and I, that's what we're looking for, is 3 more additions to this roster. Somebody at small forward, power forward, and center. I know some are going to disagree and say there's too much already, got to slow down. I truly, truly think that Carolina needs to go all in on 3 more guys and then stop, give that 13th scholarship to a walk-on and say, thanks for all you do. We're so grateful to have you as part of this university and this basketball program. Pack, lots to come in the days ahead as more unfolds. If and when RJ or North Carolina officially announces that he's returning, we're going to have to do this all over again because, look, that's just where it is. If you get that guy back, too much to not go live. Thank you all so much for tuning in. The chat's been going crazy. There's so many of you in here with us in real time, and we are grateful for that. If you are not subscribed to the show already on audio and video, please do so. Super easy to do. Those of you on YouTube, just hit that little subscribe button at the bottom. Also ring that bell so you get notifications when we break in and go live. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, you're missing out on that as well. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community. It's free to join, and the link is in the show notes here. Want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Can't wait to talk to you again soon, and we'll do that. But until then, peace.